U.S. involvement in the Israel-Iran conflict seems to be up in the air for now.
The Wall Street Journal, however, is reporting that President Trump has already approved attack plans for Iran. The Journal writes, President Trump told senior aides late Tuesday that he approved of attack plans for Iran, but was holding off on giving the final order to see if Tehran will abandon its nuclear program. 3 people familiar with the deliberations said.
Here's what President Trump told reporters yesterday.
I have ideas as to what to do, but I haven't made a final. I like to make the final decision 1 second before it's due, because things change. I mean, especially with war, things change.
Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal expressed concern over whether the U.S. was prepared for such a task. Let's watch.
One point that deeply troubles me is that I have no sense, no confidence that we have adequately prepared U.S. personnel in the region, both civilian and military, for the ramifications of a strike.
Meanwhile, the Middle East conflict rages on. The IDF tweeted a statement from a spokesperson this morning, writing, early this morning, an Iranian ballistic missile directly hit the Soroka hospital in Beersheba. This hospital serves over 1 million Israelis, including Bedouins, Jews, Christians, and Arabs alike. Iran targets civilians. We target an existential threat that endangers global security.
As a result of this attack, Israel's defense minister said that Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, cannot continue to exist.
Khamenei rejected Trump's calls for surrender and said that if the U.S. gets involved, they will face, quote, irreparable damage and, quote, all-out war will ensue. Khamenei said Wednesday, wise individuals who know Iran, its people, and its history never speak to this nation with the language of threats because the Iranian nation is not one to surrender. So I will say Trump's mind not being totally made up is better than being firmly, absolutely committed to war and regime change. There is, I think that we're at a moment where there are mixed feelings inside the administration. There are certainly mixed feelings outside the administration. I was just looking, this just came out, I think, as we were doing the show, a poll from the Washington Post on how the American people are feeling about this. You have opposing the war, 45%, unsure, 30%, support is just 25%. Support among Republicans is higher, but it's not universal by any stretch of the imagination. So, and then independents massively oppose it. Yeah. So the American people have, at best, some skepticism of this. They think it is a dubious proposition. Trump should be listening to that. He should be listening, I hope, to more non-interventionist voices like Tulsi Gabbard, although there's some news about her being sidelined that we're going to get to a little bit later in the show. What do you think's going on?
So, first of all, before we get to the big picture, that poll was really interesting. I just want to pick up on something that we mentioned in the introduction there, which was this Iranian missile hitting the hospital. That's bad. I am against attacks on hospitals. I'm also against Israel's attacks on 36 hospitals in Gaza, which doesn't seem to me to have created the same outrage, at least in the American media, as this instance. And I do not say that to think or to in any way celebrate Iran hitting a hospital. That is a bad thing. Now, in relation to the broader question here, those poll results that you read out were really interesting because that's a very firm plurality. 45% against 25% for and a significant group in the middle. That, to me, points out the real skepticism among the American public about doing anything that would get the United States sucked into a war here.
It's a much greater level of skepticism than there was among the public initially for Afghanistan or Iraq. Public approval of those was higher and then evaporated when reality set in. So if we're already starting out at a baseline of greater skepticism, and again, I would point out to the existence of an independent media ecosystem that allows for skeptical voices to be expressed as helping to boost those numbers, all a very good thing. This should be something that gives our officials a great deal of pause.
No, absolutely. And to that point about what we were talking about in relation to independent media and the arguments that were being heard there, you made the completely valid point about if the goal here is really to topple the current regime in Iran, who is going to replace the supreme leader if he is removed? if the whole system is going to be removed, how's that going to be replaced? From where is it going to draw any kind of legitimacy? None of these questions are being answered at all. And I think you do see across party lines a skepticism about the US getting potentially sucked into what someone like Steve Bannon would call another endless war, I think, because what actually is the objective? Is the objective purely to destroy Iran's uranium enrichment capabilities? Well, so then you drop this bunker buster on the one plant that's built inside a mountain and it's all over. It seems unlikely to me that Netanyahu is going to settle for that being all over at that point. And so where does the US go from there?
Right, it's very clear what Israel wants to do.
Right.
We need to discuss what level of support we're giving to it. It can't be the policy-making organ for the U.S. military is Congress, not the Israeli government, and frankly, not Trump on his own. I'm sure you agree. It is appalling to me that this war is not being discussed and debated in the halls of Congress and then voted on by our representatives, by our congressmen, by our senators. That is the way it is supposed to work. This is not covered under the anti-terrorism justification or anything else. Iran is a separate, sovereign nation that has not attacked us, so we can't claim it's defensive with the Houthis fired on our ships where it's okay to do some kind of limited attack. No, this is war against a unique country that has not attacked us first. That needs to be undertaken by Congress so that people are on the record as having voted for it and can be held accountable later if it goes badly, as was Hillary Clinton and people in the Republican Party who ended up supporting it. They were on the record. That's the way it's supposed to be done. This is not Trump. I mean, I appreciate that he's thinking it through and listening to other people and is not gung-ho going to necessarily do everything that Israel wants, and he's pushed back on them in other ways, and it's a complicated situation. But it is not his call alone to make.
Right.
It is right. I mean, how do we get around it? It is Congress's role to do this.
No, absolutely. I agree 100% with that. I agree about the importance of holding people accountable for their votes, but also just that it is not up to a president of whichever party to just decide that he will launch wars on a whim or because he has decided. That is something that Congress legitimately has the power to do. Next up, will 24 states follow suit on Tennessee's ban on transgender youth medical care? The latest Supreme Court ruling may make that easier. We'll discuss next.